On the third day of Christmas, namely 90s gave to me 3 calls of butter, 2 former husbands, and Santa holding a store hostage.
Classic.
Welcome to Namely 90s, the podcast that takes you back to the time before smartphones, Google, and Y2K. Join your hosts as they relive the pop culture that shaped a generation and the parts that many people wish they could forget. Listen in to the conversation about how the decade defined those who spent their childhood there and how it shaped them as adults. So, turn down the grunge and dial up the internet. Let's get started. It's time for Namely 90s.
That's right. You're listening to Namely 90s. My name's Andrew, and over there's Brandon.
That's me.
You can find us online at namely90s.com or on Twitter and Instagram at namely90s with a 90s, assuming Twitter's still around. You can also find the show on YouTube at youtube.com/@namely90s. And finally, if you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/namely90s, also with a 90s, and get signed up for one of our support levels. And welcome everybody to Day 3 of our third annual 12 Days of Christmas specials.
Woo!
How are you doing there, Brandon?
I am holly and jolly there, Andrew.
Oh, very good. I am, as usual, not festive, but what are you going to do?
I think this is a new sweater for the episode.
But I'm fresh off of couch shopping and ready to go. But always fun. We welcome back this episode our Episode 3 guest from last year's Christmas specials.
Year to date. And I will make Brandon introduce them because he hates it. I make him do it in every episode. You were just introducing him.
I know. I like to steal the tee up and then make you do it.
Welcome back, Jamie Fenderson from. Wait, do we use your last name? I don't remember.
Yeah, Jamie Fenderson.
Perfect. From the 80s and 90s Uncensored and the website 80sand90s.com.
Hey, it's good to be back, guys. This is lots of fun.
Yeah, we're happy to have you back. I don't know if you were exactly interested in joining us, but you responded to the tweet, so I was like, yeah, you're coming back.
Interested enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only really big holiday thing I do nowadays, so this is like a tradition for me now.
Yeah.
One time as a guest, twice as a tradition, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now you guys got to call me every year, otherwise I'll be like butthurt.
I know. By saying third annual, I feel like that adds some pressure.
Yeah.
If you don't invite me on every year, it's going to be like not getting a Christmas card from my grandma. I'll be all butthurt. I'll be like, "Hey guys, didn't have me on this year."
I mean,
that's
as
okay,
long
it's glad to be. I'm glad to be here. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're happy to have you back. For those of you that don't remember, Jamie is a host with Milo at the 80s and 90s Uncensored. The blurb is listen to the card-carrying Gen Xers Milo and Jamie as they banter, debate, and discuss on the 80s and 90s Uncensored. Do new episodes still drop every Monday?
Yep, every Monday without fail.
Nice.
We think Monday is a good day because that's when people are like heading to work and their lives kind of suck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, man, I'm going to work and I'm going to meet my shitty boss and I don't like that. At least I get like 25 minutes or so of these guys talking about the old days when life was better.
Yeah. One of the things I like about your podcast is that it's short and sweet. It's usually 25, 30, like in that range where we used to be. Now we just we talk too long.
Yammer on uselessly for the first. Yeah, that's true.
I don't think we've had an episode under 45.
Well, we got the old school Domino's guarantee, right? Remember when they used to have that guarantee?
Under 30 minutes, or it's still free because it's a podcast.
Yeah, but now you don't get that guarantee from Domino's, but at least you'll get it from us. At least at least you'll get that guarantee in life from somewhere.
Yeah.
Like you'll get your pizza when you get it, and you'll like it. Damn it.
And you guys have a wide swath of what you talk about, like retrospectives. Recently, I think you had the Knight Rider one. I think I saw Titanic. versus episodes. The Brittany versus Christina episode got me riled up, for sure.
Don't you mean Xtina? Who is this Christina? Is that an archaic pronunciation? We just watched Futurama for our last specials. It's kind of
the Xmas thing. Oh yeah. And then he looks back at specific years. New thing I saw, or at least I didn't see last year, trivia night. Like that's a relatively new thing for this year, right? And
we've done it in the past, but it's not common. But every year we have one trivia night. So that was our third trivia night. But sometimes our wheels, so we'll spin wheels, and one of the wheels made us talk about food trivia from 1981.
That was an interesting, like, I was like, where did they get that? Of course, the wheel.
Sometimes when you see really weird episodes, like the cover has Fabio on it and it's food trivia from 1981, and you're like, these guys just wanted to do food trivia from 1981. What's up with that? Well, usually those weird ones are because the wheels spins make it weird.
Mm.
And I feel like a loser because I wanted to do wheel stuff when we change our format. So now I feel like we have to go with something different.
You can do what we do. You can do what we do and just have fun with it.
Maybe we should consult like one of those weird talking heads, like from Power Rangers, and he can give us random topics to talk about.
Yeah, I could make an AI generated Zordon for the new year. Why not?
Well, something we have on our 100th episode coming up, or we wanted to have a mailbag. And this probably should be out by then. So we're like, hey, everybody, give us questions or comments, but nobody does because they don't want to, right?
Have you recorded?
That sounds good. Someone else can do that, and everybody thinks that. So we got like one comment on Twitter, and then everybody. So we got this bot that actually generated questions, and we just added from the 80s and 90s at the end, and we made our own mailbag.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Life gives us lemons. We make Mike's heart lemonade and get sloshed and make our own mailbag questions.
Oh, that's brilliant. AI generated prompts for episodes or mailbag questions. That's got my wheels turning now. Darn it.
AI Zordon. We can just make him say that. I don't know. This is good. We've got some ideas flowing.
Roll with it, dudes.
All right. Well, so we just finished as release schedule wise, our final episode in the first 120 episodes based on a month in a year. So we're out of months in the 90s. So we have a format change on our first episode of the year. Coming up. So that'll be fun to see what you guys come up with.
We're still excited to see what that's going to be.
We're still workshopping it. Yeah.
I'm like, Andrew
keeps throwing out not worthless, exotic ideas,
worthless,
which are counter to whatever I've been pitching for over a year.
True.
Well, I'm sure you guys will come up with something.
We'll figure it out.
I'm excited to see.
I like the AI Zordon. The more I think about it. Anyway,
it's just so much work for
things,
you.
Yeah,
because we don't know what to do, so we just have a bunch of different kind of segments because
it keeps it fresh.
We don't know what to do. So,
and at the very least, you cover a second decade, which we don't, and our Gen X, where we're millennial, so we're Gen Y. So we wouldn't be completely encroaching on.
Yeah, that is true.
But enough about us. More about you. Can you tell us a little? What have you been up to in the last year for the 80s and 90s?
Well, like we have a YouTube channel where we go over like overlooked movies from the 80s and 90s, and we review those. Just kind of ambiguous, maybe overlooked kind of films. And so we've got that going on. And then I have a new website out. I wanted to kind of disseminate knowledge from my, office worker days.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to be boring with it. So it's called Wasop's Book of Work-Life Fables.
Oh,
so it's
I like that.
Little Aesop's fables, but they're like for office workers with some notes.
How do you spell?
But be informed, but teach. It's worklifefables.com.
Worklifefables.com. Love it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm just looking for new projects for web publishing.
New creative outlets.
I probably have to go back to work. Like right now, I'm just kind of taking a little break because I'm burnt out on the corporate man, working for the corporate man. But
I feel you.
I'd rather just podcast and like write fables.
You and me both.
That sounds better.
I'm a professional podcaster and fabulist. No, you can't say that. It's too close to ableist, I guess.
In like some Greek robes. Professing my stories.
We'll just go down to the forum and speak to everyone, drink some wine.
That sounds like good life.
Yeah. Cool. Worklifefables.com.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So we brought you on to talk about the Married with Children episode.
Yeah.
Season 10, episode 13 or 14, depending on production / release schedule. I can't believe it's butter, but let's first go around and talk about our memories or our relationship to Married with Children. Do you want to start, Jamie?
Well, I remember when this first came out. So the episode we're reviewing came out in 95. So you guys were totally around, right? But this is the 10th season. So this is I think this was Fox's longest lived live action show, right?
I believe so. Yes.
So it had come out in the mid 80s when I was a kid. And I remember this was a pretty controversial show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because most sitcoms were kind of wholesome, like Full House. Everybody learns a lesson at the end. It's very wholesome and just feel good. And all sitcoms were that way. And then this one came out and it's like, oh, it's about this shoe guy who actually hates his family and he wants to go hang out at the nudie bar and stuff.
Fox was kind of trying to be the edgier network, right? Because they were new at that time.
Yeah, that's right. So they came out with this kind of edgy sitcom, which was the kind of an anti-sitcom. So I remember it was pretty controversial. Now by 95, I think it was kind of accepted, right? It's been 10 years. It's like, well, I guess we got to accept that this is kind of a thing now.
But it never changed or improved. So it was like a very like mid to late 80s message in the mid to late 90s. It was interesting.
Yeah. I think it was pretty outdated by the time. But yeah, I mean, and even now it's an interesting thing because back then it was controversial, but it would also be controversial now because you can't like do fat shaming and slut shaming and stuff like they did in that show anymore, right? You wouldn't fly.
It would definitely, it circles back on itself. It became accepted in the 90s because that's kind of became 90s humor. And then we circle back to, oh, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So I guess it is cyclical.
So I feel like how kind of terrible the 90s were in a way, I guess. Like
other shows like beat around the bush with the fat shaming a little bit. But this one was very much like, you're so fat, I'm not going to sell you shoes. And I'm like, that's wow.
Yeah.
And it's always fat women too.
We'll come back to that.
There's misogyny too. Like
one of his friends is a fat dude. And
it's okay to be a fat guy like my friends, but you're a woman, so that whole fatness is disgusting.
Oh, he and his friends formed the group No Ma'am, and
No Ma'am.
I forget what the acronym is, but it's something like it is a group of misogynists, essentially,
and that's what it is.
Yeah, trying to escape their wives.
Yeah, and their clubhouse is the nudie bar.
Right.
Yeah, but it is also that very like antiquated whole like, oh, the old ball and chain thing that, like it's just very it's bad.
Yeah, nowadays you just get divorced, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, all right, well, agree to disagree and then just get a divorce.
I think you made a good point.
Let's get divorced and we're over it. It's done.
Married with Children.
Another reason I kind of think it's interesting is Al Bundy works at a shoe store. And, and it's like, oh, my life sucks so bad and I'm always broke and my wife doesn't work. But then you're like, well, you got this kind of
Jamie, you froze.
two-story house and what looks to be a decent neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you complaining about? Because here's the deal. I mean, you guys know the Seattle area. You guys live in California too now, right?
I do. He doesn't.
I'm Eastern Washington now. Spokane.
Yeah, but like in the Seattle area, like if I were a shoe salesman and my wife didn't want to work, I wouldn't be having a 2-story house like that. I'd be out in the camps, like with a tent.
Yeah.
And also, people would be like, "Oh, Jamie, did he turn into a meth head?" No, he's a shoe salesman. His wife doesn't want to work, so he lives.
Might I point out though that he's a shoe salesman who doesn't make great money, but he spends a lot of money on going to the nudie bar. But yet, like the fat lady's money is as good as anybody else's. So like he's being selective about who he sells shoes to when he's basically broke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be a commission on that.
I mean, also, this is season 10, the episode that we watched, and Bud and Christina Applegate's character are still living at
pretty
home.
Much grown up by then, right?
Yeah, but they're still living at home and leeching off of their father.
Listen, he has enough money to buy the best brown appliances in the world.
Yes.
It's very, very, yeah.
Well, I don't know. Back in the day, I thought it was funny that he's a funny guy and his life kind of sucks. But now I'm like, your life's actually all right, bro. I don't know what you're complaining about.
Loving wife. That's Katie Siegel.
The funny thing I was telling Brandon is that so I've been rewatching Modern Family, which of course stars Ed O'Neill, and then we watched Futurama the other day, which has Katie Siegel. I'm like, this is weird, but it's like I've gone back in time. It's strange.
Yeah. I don't think I was allowed to watch this. I might have caught it once on a first run, but most of my experience is watching this like during the day on reruns on FX. And I know for a fact that I've seen this episode before because I haven't seen the whole series, but I have seen this episode before because I remember parts that we'll get to later, but I like there were scenes and like it just kept coming back to me, and I was like, okay, haven't watched this series in at least half a decade, if not more, and it's still coming back.
I'm assuming you never see the mother-in-law. Is that like an ongoing gag in the show?
Yeah, and I think she was a later addition because I don't recall her being a part of the family in the earlier episodes. But yeah, I guess
it was voiced by Kathleen Freeman, by the way.
Kathleen Freeman. Why does that sound familiar?
She's been in voice acting, TV and movie acting since the 40s. She sadly passed away in 2001, but one of her last roles was in Joe Dirt, where she was kind of the mean lady, foster mom lady. Man, you'll have your clean nails and you'll study. She's been in 1,000 things.
Oh yeah,
you'll know her voice, so you'll know her presence if you see it. She never had like the main roles, but she's had a trillion supporting roles.
She was in Gremlins 2, the new batch, which we watched.
She's always recently. Got the kind of the grouchy old lady or the grouchy fat lady, or even the grouchy lady voice thing going on.
Oh yeah,
I just thought I'd throw
it's
that
the Gremlins cooking lady, Gremlins 2. That's funny.
Jeez.
So there's a little piece of trivia for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think I vaguely remember seeing her in Blues Brothers and possibly Blues Brothers 2000, but I hate that movie. So yeah, for those of you listeners out there that aren't familiar with Married with Children, it's a American sitcom from Fox that ran from April of 87 to June of 97. It is the longest lasting live action sitcom that aired on Fox. Because I think like recently, Full House probably outran it, and Modern Family is at least the same amount of seasons. Let's see. It is. So it follows Al Bundy and his family who live in Chicago.
It's always Chicago.
Every sitcom seems to be Chicago. Wasn't that two
That's
guys,
where you
girl,
can
and
afford to live
Pixelland?
if you're a shoe salesman, I guess.
I think it's the middle of the country, so maybe they're trying to kind of
Midwest
capture both sides of both coasts. I hate when people say left coast. By the way, I think I've said that before.
I don't. Who says that?
People.
High school football player turned hard luck women's shoe salesman. Say that 5 times fast. His wife Peggy, their dim-witted daughter Kelly, and their smart Alex son Bud. They also have their 2 neighbors, Steve and Marcy. And then Steve gets divorced early on and is replaced by Jefferson Darcy. So she becomes Marcy Darcy. Except I don't think she takes his last name. Yeah.
Boy, that blurb just sounds like the worst, least creative product of the writer's room. Like, okay, what if we take a couple and then we have a ditzy daughter and like a smart Alex son? And you're like, oh, what if you just made a sitcom that everyone else already made before?
But it's the 80s, so it's groundbreaking at that point.
I know. But now you're like, you hear that. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I forgot about Steve until I even read that blurb, because he's kind of unassuming in the first seasons. I remember Jefferson more than Steve. Steve was played by David Garrison, and for some reason he looks familiar. Anyway, yeah.
Jefferson was kind of funny because he didn't want to work because he's kind of good looking.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, my wife's going to work and I'm just not going to do anything because all I have to do is give up some nookie and that's it.
I don't want to give up too much, but like when he walked onto the set and the studio audience went nuts, I looked at my wife and I was like, is that somebody? Apparently it was, but I didn't know.
Yeah, he put on some weight, because I recall him being more slender when he first appears, earlier seasons.
Well, are you fat shaming now?
Yes, I'm in the mood
fat shaming
based
though,
off
because he's a dude.
Yeah. I'm just in the mood after watching this show. And then one of my favorite things about this series is that the title song, the theme song, is Love and Marriage, sung by Frank Sinatra.
I'm assuming this was a standard 30-second like intro sequence, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got so bored and annoyed by it, I had to fast forward through it.
Okay.
I couldn't. It was so annoying and slow, and just I was like, "Good Lord!"
That's how they were back then.
I feel like this episode had like an extra, like, because it finished. I always recall it finishing on the house, and then it had an extra like 15 seconds of him on the couch being annoyed by Peg and the kids. And
I don't mind the ones where it's, again, my favorite is where they show the character or the actor's name at the bottom and they kind of like look up from what they're doing and look at the camera, and then they have the intense theme music. But this one was like, it's a joke, but it never delivered, and it took so long. I was like, okay, can we get into this thing already? I was sitting there by myself at the time, and I was like, start.
I also noticed, I was like, I don't recall it being this long. Why is it this long?
I mean, I was kind of in a hurry, but still, it's like, come on.
No,
I don't think the current generation can accept the long, like 30-second intros for TV shows now. I don't.
It's got to be more flashy.
Especially if they do, they need a little skip intro button.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it needs some flash, some excitement.
The whole thing. If you wanted to watch the show, you sit down, you shut up, and you be patient.
Yeah,
well, it's like the titles. The titles on like CW shows are like the title and then like just a flash of 5 seconds around it and then done. Yeah. Cheaper budget, I guess. Yeah. And then also this may or may not be true, but in May of 2022 it was announced that there's going to be an animated revival series. Voiced by everyone. It's in the works. I don't know if it's actually going to be made or not. Yeah. Anything else about Married with Children before we get into the episode? Anyone?
Like, there's plenty to say about the episode itself.
Fair enough. Shall we get into it then?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I can't believe it's butter. We start off, I think, was it the intro? Was there a teaser, or was it just straight into it? I don't remember.
I don't recall.
I think they just went straight into it.
Yeah,
they're at the table, right?
Yes.
They don't have any food because the whole shtick is, we're poor, so we can't eat.
Al brings out his festive Christmas sock, which is green.
But it's not green. It was white to begin with.
Yeah. Well, this show did the thing that every sitcom did, where like the camera is the fifth person at the table or whatever. It's like at some point, can we just put them all four around the table and then just have like a couple of angles, I guess budget or something. But my God.
Yeah.
Golden
it's
Girl
just
style.
It's very distracting for me because I'm like, this is not natural. I can't deal with this.
But I mean, you just have that one stage for the downstairs.
That is true.
All you get. Yes. Let's see. I think. So yeah, he's doling out the Christmas cash, which Peg has sworn she had not broken into his lockbox and stolen this year and spent on herself, but her mom, his mother-in-law, Al's mother-in-law, who lives with them now, has she spent money on $500 worth of pies.
Yes, strudel barn or what was it called?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Strudel barn. Yeah, and then all the money was spent on her, so there's no funds, and he offers the kids handshakes for their Christmas presents.
Well, didn't she had to then buy like a heavy duty Stairmaster because of all of the strudel or something?
That's what it was. Yes. It goes straight to your thighs.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is what I was thinking when I was watching the show. I was like, why is everyone yelling? Like the dialogue is all shouted. I swear. It was like,
Yeah.
I mean, while they love each other, I don't think they like each other.
no, I know, but it was like, it was just very shouty. I noticed. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Now that you say it, it is. I think maybe every episode is kind of that way. Al is always shouting. Come on, Peg.
To do it for 11 or 12 seasons, that's impressive. The kids leave to raise some money for Christmas presents by pretending to be a shell-shocked veteran and a blind man. And last time Kelly was reading People magazine.
Well, and the other like plot device was he said that either his wife had to get a job or her mom did. So that's when they decided that she was like, well, okay. And then she makes her mom get a job.
He also called her Rudolph the Redhead Couchweight at that point, I think.
I was like, we are about 8% on these jokes landing. That's where I was when I was watching this. I was like, this is...
I did laugh when Kelly said, I wasn't reading the magazine, I was looking at the pictures.
That is funny.
But yeah. And yeah, Al says, I don't expect his mother-in-law to pull her weight because that's impossible. Fat joke. It's just, yeah. So yeah, cuts to the store, as Andrew mentioned earlier. A larger woman comes in and is immediately fat shamed and shooed away by Al.
And it seems like they just had that in there because they needed the whole fat shaming the woman in the shoe store bit, because otherwise there was no reason for it.
Like, we're about to have our Christmas party. Their Christmas party is like 3 minutes of them talking about phone sex.
Yes.
You can postpone that for a minute to sell this lady some shoes.
I guess that's a good point. They fat shame the woman and setting up the fact that the mom phone sex operator, when she's revealed later, well, sort of might not be their type, I guess. But we already know that. It's no, ma'am. Yes. Jefferson shows up, and Marcy shows up in the doorway.
The crowd goes wild. I said.
Yeah. Jefferson's escaped the unemployment office that Marcy dropped him off at to join them, and he goes on about not working and skimming money off of their mutual fund. What a good husband.
Yeah, definitely.
Jefferson has a great quote in this too. Since the wives are downtown feeding dinners to the homeless, shouldn't we be at the nudie bar feeding dollars to the topless?
That was
so stupid.
It's the 90s.
Yeah.
80s.
I mean, we'll get back to that. Well, I have more to say when we get back to that point. But
Okay.
My gosh.
Let's see. Griff shows up dressed as Santa. There's a kid on his leg, and he's apparently the mall Santa. and they choose the kid. There's so many clips I couldn't like write them all down. Like we would just be doing the entire episode,
like buying the kid a pony, and the mom's like, don't tell him we're
release my leg and I'll get you a pony. And the mom's like, why did you tell him that?
Like, he said, I said tips were encouraged or something, and she gave them. I don't know.
Wow, good memory. And then Al gifts. So Griff has just been divorced recently, and he's feeling down on himself. So Al gifts him a card for phone sex for 20 minutes free. Because that's what you do for your guys. Bro.
I was just talking with Milo about this. The 1-900 numbers. That's a very 80s and 90s thing. Like
I think they're illegal now.
Are they? No. I've been late enough on Comedy Central to see the 1-800 phone sex now.
You're like, I've been up late enough to call one of those. I mean, we'll see the commercials for.
No, I'm like, I recognize that porn star.
She's
not going to be on the other end of the line.
But they have 1-900 numbers for everything. So if you're a kid in the 80s, that's what started in the 80s. And like after cartoons, you see He-Man, he'd be like, call my 1-900 number. By the way, ask your parents, but if you don't, then can
we go back to the gay apparel comment? Like the guy's wearing a Christmas sweater and they say it's gay. I'm like, I heard that and I just it was immediate head into hands. Like there was a lot of.
So now we're making fun of veterans, blind people, gay people.
I did a lot of
people
temple rubbing watching the show. I was like, ugh.
Yeah. So the guys fight over the card. The guy in the Christmas sweater swipes it and calls the line. But then they put it on speakerphone. They all give their pseudonyms, I guess would be the right word.
It was like something with shoehorn, whatever, like Molly McButter, or what was something like that.
Yeah. Different code names.
Yeah,
when they call 1-900 yummy.
and they were all related to their jobs. So 3 of them were different shoe puns or shoe salesman
security
puns.
Guard guy.
Yeah, security guard
Mall
guy.
Cop guy.
The other guy was a butcher.
Was it the Village People? I'm confused.
I never put that one together. And yeah, so they call up Butter. She's got a very sexy voice that I assume if you've watched this show before or a previous episode with Al's mother-in-law in it, you would recognize some of the sultriness going on. But yeah, they get all hot and heavy, and then one of the guys has to think about baseball really quick. And
the thing that creeps me out is the speakerphone thing. You want to hear another man's phone sex? What?
Yeah.
In person? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
shall we just all dial a phone sex operator together right now for
in your workplace?
Make a party out of it.
At the mall.
1-900 yummy guys party with the No Man Club. How about that?
But he takes it off his speakerphone, gives it to Griff, and Griff starts talking to her and starts to feel better about himself. Griff gives Al a ride home. They start arguing about or playfully talking about how Al's Dodge is terrible, and so is the Geo Metro that Griff drives.
Let's
Geo Metro. That's a very 90s thing there.
It's like a 3-cylinder hatchback, but it's here, let me settle this for you. They're both awful. Okay, moving on.
I mean, he's not wrong. It is easier to push a Geo Metro up a hill.
But I did actually
remember the Geo Metros were always this kind of sky blue.
I was thinking like an off green.
There was like a light. There was like a tealish,
yeah,
like a blue color. That all of them were that color.
Yeah,
just like the Geo Storms were always yellow.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Remember they always had that one color for that one car.
Noted host of Attack of the Show, Kevin Pereira's dream car is a '91 Geo Storm. So
it's not. It's no one's dream, I'll tell you that.
Bulbous canopies.
He's a man that's now living in a trailer, so it might be. So Al gets home. No one else, or his mother-in-law scares off Griff because Al offers him a beer, and she's like, beer. And then, so since no one else is home, Al decides to try the phone line or the phone sex line, and hears a ring, is confused, hangs up, dials it again, and then realizes it's his mother-in-law.
You know, that joke was funny, and it kind of grew on me as it kept going. Until he sat down and like mouthed a phrase like "oh" or whatever. I was like, now it's not funny anymore. Like, it was funny, and then you just took it that one step too far to make it like over, like, just too much.
Yep.
But also, can I point out that the fact that later in the episode, when they call a line from the house again, it's a different phone ringing sound.
Is it?
It's like an old hotel phone on the first one, and then the second time it sounds more like a regular receiver type handset. Digital.
That's funny. I didn't notice that.
Bad sound effects.
I have
not
a problem.
paying attention.
Yes. So as Andrew mentioned, Al mouths towards the camera, "Oh my God, she's butter." And that's the act break. We go to commercials, but since commercials don't exist anymore, it cuts immediately to Christmas dinner at the Bundy residence that Butter is paid for. The whole house is decked out in Christmas trimmings. Very, very lavish.
Large.
Yeah, off of Butter's income. And apparently everyone knows about it because Kelly's like, I really enjoyed this feast that Grandma bought us for dinner. Maybe we should invite her down. And Al's like, "Are you crazy? Do you want to spoil it?" Because we also hate mother-in-laws, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Add that to the list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we like room temperature canned gravy.
Oh yeah,
that's
with the funnel. He sticks the funnel in it.
It's like an oil spout.
I mean, I do agree. I do think around the holidays, gravy should be considered a beverage and served in such a way. I mean, I love some gravy, but not room temperature canned gravy.
That's right. Griff comes over and they have some shots of gravy while Al tries to get the family to get his mother-in-law out of her room so that Peg could ban the line because Griff wants to take Butter away and meet her in person.
Griff's in love with Butter now.
Yeah, he's
fell in love, dude.
with Butter, not margarine. Okay.
I want to go back and say you quoted where it said, "Unlike marriage, phone sex is a victimless crime," and I was just like, neither one of those are crimes. This is a terrible joke.
That was the humor of the show. Unfortunate for you. Also, when Griff showed up, he folded up the tablecloth with all the food in it and threw it in the closet because they were afraid the neighbors would come and steal it all.
Well, then why don't you just not have your neighbors come in if they're thieves, right? It's your house. Yeah. You don't have to hide your food. If they're like, "Hey, we want to come in and steal your food," you close the door, you lock it.
Well, he tried to shove the door in Griff's face and Griff came in.
Well, not only that, they tried to imply that if they saw the food on the table, they were going to immediately make the connection that the mother-in-law was Butter. That's not a logical conclusion to jump to because someone has food.
Oh, I thought it was just because
you have food?
They wanted the food.
That means your mother-in-law's the phone sex lady I've been talking.
Yeah, exactly.
I made the connection. Sherlock Holmes kind of shiznit it right there. Yeah. Oh,
I mean that's
dear Watson. I've solved the case.
I'm now going to have to assume that every time I see food on a Thanksgiving or Christmas table.
Oh, clearly your mother-in-law is operating a phone sex line.
So Griff is in love with Butter, as Jamie points out. The family's luring her out of her room so Peg can pretend to be Butter. Did anyone take the time to look at what was in the set dressing for the mother-in-law's room? There's a full deli counter.
I was confused. Why is she in a meat
whole
case?
Deli counter with the deli case where you can store all the meats and cheeses and stuff.
You never know when you need a cold cut.
Well, I kind of missed the part about her being overweight or whatever. So I was just I'm confused. Why is there a deli in her bedroom?
That's fair. I think there were some context clues you missed then. let's see. Peg, somehow the moral center of the family this episode, is protesting. She feels like it's a little weird for her to lead Griff astray like this, and Al says
she gets kind of into it. You know, she's like, okay, you know, it's like he invites her on a sleigh ride, and then for dinner, and then going to the airport Motel 6 to rock her world or whatever.
She starts getting hot. She's like, oh, okay, I'll be right there.
That joke worked for me because
I'll be back in a couple hours.
I once booked a hotel at an airport Motel 6, and I was like, yep.
Ew.
By the hour.
Al points out that it'd be like leaving me for me.
He's a shoe salesman too.
Yeah. To get her to do it in the first place, though, he says, pretend you're with someone else. And she says, thanks, Fabio. And he says, you're welcome, Ginger. And Marianne.
It's like,
which is a Gilligan's Island
a Gilligan's Island joke. I'm dying. I mean, it was 1997 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah, but Gilligan's Island was... You're right. Gilligan's Island was what, the 70s?
I was like, wow, current reference.
60s, yeah.
So that's 30 years old.
Mm-hmm. It's like us talking about it now.
What kind of idiot would do that?
Yeah. So the rest of No Man shows up.
If you talk about Fabio now, nobody's going to know what you're talking about.
No.
And it's interesting that Fabio did. I can't believe it's not butter commercials, by the way. So
that's true. That must have been. Yeah, that must have been where the reference came from. Right, because
it just seemed like a stretch. They had to write a title, and that's the best they could do.
So the rest of No Man shows up. That's where the Jefferson's line about the wives are out, and we should giving. What was it? The wives are out giving
feeding homeless, so we should feed.
Jamie said it earlier.
Dollars to the topless.
Since the wives are downtown feeding dinners to the homeless, shouldn't we be at the nudie bar feeding dollars to the topless?
Yeah, but then they did like 2 or 3 more riffs on it after that. I was like, oh my God, stop. No more. Oh, a third one. Great. Like I needed it to stop. It was bad.
I do have to say the pacing for this episode was not the best, because like the resolution comes after the 15 riffs on that one line, because they were all talking so loud. The mom upstairs hears it, and then in her overweightness, as she comes to the top of the banister, Jamie's doing it on screen. There's rumbling.
The whole house shakes.
The whole house shakes.
Supposedly
pieces of the ceiling fell down. And she's like, I recognize those boys. And she calls out all of their names. And
all their pseudonyms.
They're all afraid.
Oh my God.
Say hello to Butter, or is that what she says? I don't know. It was something along the lines of say hello to Butter, and then all the guys scream in fear, and then it's a freeze frame. And that's the episode.
Yeah. Oh boy.
That was, I did not expect it to end there. I thought there would be at least like some resolution to this conflict. But no, it was that.
But I was grateful that it had finally come to an end.
Well, you had just gone through the stress of having 17 iterations on that one line. So, that was the Married with Children episode. I can't believe it's Butter. Final thoughts.
I'll go.
Okay.
This show reinforces every feeling I have about baby boomers, and it also reveals a little bit as to why, no offense, Generation X could be the way that it is. Like these people with their parents. That's kind of where I'm at with this. But the other thing is, I feel like either Ed O'Neill was just a hacky actor back then, or someone was really egging him on, because his performance and delivery in Modern Family is much, much better. Like, this is very physical, very like, just it didn't work. It wasn't funny. I laughed at about 8% of the jokes. It was not, I found it very unpleasant because of how like offensive it was. And I'm not terribly easily offended, but I was like, ugh, pretty much throughout the whole episode, I almost couldn't watch.
I definitely think that's the character, like, because as we know from like Modern Family or anything Ed O'Neill's in, he is a good actor. It's just this was a different time, and that was definitely the character. The way the character was written, is well acted.
So my final review is I hated it. I will not watch another episode of this program.
Wow. Okay. Good to know. Jamie, do you want to go?
Yeah, I think this show was pretty tired and hackneyed by the time this episode was made in 1995. I think maybe for a few years in the mid to late 80s, this was pretty funny and kind of avant-garde, kind of different. But I think by 1995, this was all kind of tired. So it's fat shame the lady in the shoe store, and the mom-in-law is big. Look at the house shake, and no ma'am, and titty bars, and I was tired of it just watching it this time, pretending like I was in 95, and I would have been tired of it then too. So I was kind of double tired of it. I think this is a show that probably should have ended like as the 90s started. So I don't know. I wanted to enjoy it because it's nostalgic and it's I do maybe like earlier episodes, like the first few years of it, but I think I was tired watching this, and I hadn't even seen it in so long.
It was like so spectacularly offensive that like how ill-advised the jokes were is what made me laugh, and not the jokes themselves, you know?
Well, it definitely has that later generation of like a long running show, like, I don't know, say The Simpsons, where they're like, oh, these beats work, so let's just keep doing it on autopilot.
And the reason The Simpsons is still on the air is because they adapted, you know?
Exactly. The newest season or two has been completely different than the first 10, 12 seasons. Yeah. For me, the thing I missed the most in this episode was Bud and Kelly. Specifically Kelly, because Christina Applegate's great in this show. She plays the ditzy blonde really well, and we don't get to see her acting chops either in this. I think, Andrew had a point, like, you get to see the more depth of these actors in different roles in the future. But I do think that they do shine as an ensemble cast. This episode doesn't really feature anyone other than Al and his friends, and a unseen behemoth. It's not the best episode to pick to just drop in on, but and it is definitely hackneyed and tired, but I wouldn't mind going back and watching an episode or two, somewhere around season 3. Yeah.
Season 10 is like, oh.
Season 10, it's time to take them out to pasture.
Oh, here comes another fat lady in the shoe.
Imagine how exhausted as an actor in that show you had to have been. I almost felt like I felt that coming across.
I mean, the other thing is I couldn't exactly remember if I had seen this episode before or if he fat shames a woman in every episode.
Well, yeah, he kind of does.
Yeah.
At the shoe store, somewhere they gotta fat shame a woman. That's like the running shtick in every episode, it seems.
Yeah. Anything else on Married with Children?
Well, it's good to see Christina Applegate, though. She was not hard to look at.
Back in the day. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, she's still very attractive. I guess that's it for this holiday edition of Namely 90s. Tune in tomorrow for day 4 of our 2022 12 Days of Christmas specials. Thank you to Jamie of the 80sand90s.com / the 80s and 90s Uncensored for coming on. Let our listeners know where to find you, Jamie. Oh, check out the mug. You can see that on the YouTube version.
I'm just drinking coffee. I don't know what you're talking about.
And we'll tell our listeners where to
80sand90s.com. I don't know. I would give you my Twitter, but at the time of recording this, it might not. Who knows if it's going to exist by the time this episode releases? So
that's fair.
80sand90s.com is like the best. It seems like the safest place. You can't find us on Google Plus. Maybe Twitter will join that thing. So yeah, 80s, 90s, the 80sand90s.com. Somebody took 80sand90s.com, so we just put a V in front of it, all the Ohio State style.
I like the, and it really shoves it to Milo, because you know how they always drop the from like, I've got to go to hospital.
Go to university.
Yes. But yeah, so the 80sand90s.com, that's 80s and 90s.com with a the in the front. And as always, find us on Twitter if it still exists, and Instagram at Namely90s with 90s, or find our personal Twitter accounts, again, if that's still a thing that exists, at bshwitty and at Namely Andrew. Tell us what you want us to talk about on future episodes. If you'd like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com / Namely90s and 90s. Finally, you can also contact us through our website, Namely90s.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Butter, Deezer, TuneIn, iHeart, and wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Brandon. That's Andrew. Thank you again one final time for his second appearance on our Christmas specials, to Jamie from the 80sand90s.com, the 80s and 90s Uncensored, and we will catch you tomorrow for day 4 of the 12 Days of Christmas specials.
Goodbye.
Blah, blah, blah.